Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. We are here to do our Week 13 picks. We're not going live this week. Some things have come up. It's Thanksgiving week, so happy Thanksgiving, everybody, depending on when you watch this. And with me, as always, is Adam. Thanks for joining me. And
good to be here, Trevor.
Take some mercy on me today as we do our picks.
I'll do my best.
So we've been getting on. Please, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We also, on top of doing our weekly picks, which I guess for the football season, we only have a couple more with conference championships after this week and then bowl games. But we also do our live reaction after each game and the power rankings for the Big 12, along with other stuff. So please, again, like the channel and subscribe to or like the video, subscribe to the channel. I knew I'd get that right. And so let's get into it, Adam. Let's see real quick. Let's take a review at what we did last week. So these were the games we picked, and we ended up coming out even on both of these. So we both got 2 wrong, and so it was a wash after all. So I took a chance there with UCF beating Texas Tech, and they got close.
That was a good game, right down to the wire.
Yeah. So I was feeling lucky there for a minute. And I knew I was taking a chance on Oregon State over Washington, but I thought that could be a surprise pick of the week. It was, in fact, not. So
yeah. Well, that was a little closer than the Utah-Arizona game. That I should have smelled that a mile away. Those poor Utes couldn't hang with the new look Wildcats, who are quite the force coming into the Big 12 next year.
Yeah, I have to admit that on top of me getting that pick right over you, that felt good for so many reasons, especially as Utah, is going to just completely demolish the Big 12 if you ask them. So, last I checked, Arizona will be in the Big 12. So, all right. And you went with Houston. That was a gutsy pick. It looked like you might get that right for a minute.
I was feeling it for about a quarter and a half there, and it just felt like a savant. I could see the future, what was going to happen. And then Oklahoma State got back into gear after that UCF debacle and ran away with it. So they're coming in a lot of momentum this week to BYU.
Yeah, absolutely. You knew that they weren't going to, after what had happened the week before with UCF, they weren't going to sleep on that. But it did look like, Houston came out with a lot of confidence early on. And I could see something similar happening this week. But we'll save that for a minute. So let's quickly look at where we're at so far. So I'm still trailing by 7 against you. But no worries, because we're doing something a little different this week. Because it is rivalry week and so many rivalry games, when we do our picks, we'll do the Big 12 as always, but then we will kind of do a rapid fire through all of the many rivalry games. And I tried to choose only games that I felt like were legitimate, big time rivalries, generally the primary rival game, not just another in-conference rival, but the big one. So we'll go through and rapid fire through them, and I haven't really gone through and made picks yet, and I didn't send you the list, so we're just going to have to kind of go through and see how it goes. So that will give me a chance to possibly close the gap here on this, but I am not overly hopeful. So before we do all that, let's quickly talk about this game from last week, review the BYU Oklahoma game. And so if you're not interested in reviewing that, or if it hurts too much, go ahead and skip forward a little bit when we get to picks. But what hurts, Adam, is when you look at the stat line, the team stats, you go through this, and for the first time, not the first time, but, BYU really, even in their win, many of their other wins, they were losing the stats. And here we're essentially tied in most categories, and yet we still came up short.
Yeah, I'll tell you, from my perspective, a loss never feels like a win. I don't know if you believe in moral victories or not, but this felt so much better than our last games, and I got to take it. I mean, we took a team like Oklahoma down to the wire. I thought defense and offense showed out. You got a relatively inexperienced quarterback in Jake Retzlaff, who put the ball on the ground, threw the pick six at the goal line. Just some young mistakes that you don't want to see. Um, but we did in this one. It was tough to swallow those mistakes because we had them on the ropes and we were right there. But man, it was fun to watch. Our offense was clicking. We could move the ball. Our defense was playing in sync. This was a really impressive game for the Cougars, and gives you a glimmer of hope for next season. I've said it before. I feel like our offensive line struggles will not be solved by one off season. I think we'll see that next year in the Big 12, that we're still trying to find our identity on the offensive line. It just feels like the struggles are so deep. But boy, they played well and they moved that ball. They ran the ball well. Aiden Robbins looked the part. There were so many positive takeaways, and I like Retzlaff. I think that it's clear that A-Rod offense needs a mobile quarterback just by design. That triple option threat with the pass out to Epps worked a couple times. It was really fun to watch. Cody Epps was a big part of the offense. There were so many things to like about this, but at the end of the day, you have a mobile quarterback in Jake Retzlaff. You also have an inexperienced quarterback in Jake Retzlaff, and his mistakes cost us the game. But I walked away okay with that. We played well. It was fun to watch, and Retzlaff has got to take his lumps to be able to learn that role if he's going to take over the lead spot next year.
Yeah. So would you say if we have a healthy Keaton Slovis, would you put him in against Oklahoma State, or would you keep running with Retzlaff?
I'd put Slovis in because you've got a bowl game on the line. We're going to have to play out of our minds to beat Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State with what they have on the line. So I go with Slovis because it's a big moment, because it would be potentially his last collegiate football game. And I feel like while A-Rod's offense needs a mobile quarterback to really click on all cylinders, we move the ball enough through a standard run game that I give Slovis a shot. I think our offensive struggles have not been completely on Slovis. While the running quarterback gives you another wrinkle to throw in there, there were so many issues in the offense, and I don't think Slovis should take the blame for that. I think he's a very good quarterback, and I'd put it on his shoulders with all on the line.
Yeah, I kind of differ. I think you keep running with Retzlaff because I think it's his mobility that has allowed the offense to finally start clicking. Now, they said they've done some other things. They simplified things for the offensive line, which is great. But I'm also wondering, why did it take you so many games when the offensive line was clearly struggling? So I even saw one play that I noticed in particular where I saw Caleb Etienne blocking, and he held up. He was blocking his guy, and I don't know how many plays he was in for, but I thought, whatever they did, it was working. Now, if they could keep running like they did on Oklahoma, then yeah, Slovis probably gives you the better chance to win. But I also wonder if, one, I think it's doubtful that we're going to be able to replicate that game. Not saying we can't. I'll believe it when I see it that we can run like that again, just because it was one time. Although it definitely.
Yeah.
It definitely gives you, reason to believe and be hopeful for it, and I hope we can. But yeah, if he's running, if Aiden Robbins is able to run like he did against Oklahoma, then yeah, because Slovis, I think it'll finally open things up for him a little bit to do what he does, and I'd love for him to be able to showcase what he can do, and have a chance at the NFL. I hate what's kind of happened to him, and I think the team wants to be loyal to him. On the other hand, I think you got to keep developing Retzlaff. I mean, this season is what the season is, but you have a chance to do a little bit more going forward. So anyway, yeah, in terms of, moral victories, no, I don't believe in those, but I've tried to think, I was like, what feels worse, the 3 consecutive blowouts or this close loss? And I feel like with the blowouts, after a while, you just get numb and kind of frustrated, whereas this one hurt more. But on the other hand, like you said, there is a little bit of reason to believe, and you have to feel good that the team is getting some confidence. The problem is there's really only one game left for them to pull that all together and demonstrate that that they're really figuring it out. So
the fact that we looked competent, that we looked the part in this game, made it so, to me, so much more watchable. Those blowouts were so hard to watch when there was just you couldn't get anything moving at any time. And I agree, you kind of get numb to it, but it's just not fun to watch. Um,
Even the
I
wins were painful.
Yes, yes, it's tough to watch that kind of football, and this was really fun football to watch. You got an excellent team that you're taking to the wire. Of course, you want the victory, but to me, that's just such an enjoyable experience watching your team do well against a tough squad that comes into play. I enjoyed the game, and you lose, you never like the loss. The loss is never a win, but to me, I'd take that over the blowouts any day.
Yeah, and honestly, I've said this before. I thought BYU might come away through the season with only 5 wins, and I was prepared for that. But I thought there were going to be a lot of losses that looked like this. I knew some losses weren't
Yeah,
going to be pretty, but
yeah.
I thought that BYU was going to go in and compete and just come up short. Because Utah loves to rub the record against us during independence, but most of those games were so close, and at the end of the
Oh
day, it
yeah.
really probably came down to depth and attrition near the end of those games. And and I knew that was going to be the case in a lot of these matchups in the Big 12. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm I am hopeful. So speaking of all that, and sorry about I don't know why it's doing that. Speaking of which, that brings us to this week's matchup. So, do you think that BYU is able to carry that momentum against the Oklahoma State team that's finally looked a little bit flawed since beating Kansas State, or do you think we revert to the mean, or how do you expect this to go?
I think we'll show out again. I think when it's all on the line like this, and you got to have a victory for bowl consideration, Kalani's teams usually rise to the moment. But that being said, I think the only way we win this game is if Oklahoma State loses the game, if that makes sense. This is in Oklahoma State's court. If they play like the way they can play, we can't hang with them. They're that good. They've been a little shaky at times, and when Oklahoma State's bad, they're bad. And so if they come out with that Oklahoma State, oh yeah, we've got a shot. Um, Even in Stillwater, I don't care where the game is, we can we can hang with them. Because I do think BYU will have a good showing. I don't anticipate a blowout. I think we found our footing again. You look past all the seasons of Kalani and we'll hit those games, whether it's USF or Coastal Carolina or Liberty and Arkansas last year. We hit these stretches that is just not good football. But we regain our footing and finish the year. So I think we'll come out strong. I do. I think we'll play well. But I don't think we can beat Oklahoma State unless Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma State.
So, what's your pick?
I'm picking Oklahoma State in this one.
Oh, me too. So yeah, I do think BYU is going to have a better showing, and I think they can be in this game, and I think they can have a chance. Obviously, they've got to fix those turnovers. Those were obviously, with a 14-point swing there in a matter of seconds in the last game, and yet BYU was still in it. Was basically everything BYU needed to go their way did in order to pull off an upset like that one
Yeah.
against Oklahoma, and yet they still found a way to lose it. However, I think against Oklahoma State, it's going to be a little bit tougher because you got Gordon, and if they just feed him the ball, I think they're going to be successful because you saw near the end, BYU was not able to slow down the Oklahoma run game, and
Yeah.
I think if BYU gets behind early, I think they're going to have a very tough time as they have all season. If they can hang with Oklahoma State throughout the game, that's good, but they got to make sure they're in a position late where Oklahoma State can't just, run it on them and eat up the clock.
Yep. Yep. Agreed.
So anyway, I'm hopeful though. I'm excited for it, and we will. I'm at least excited to watch some good football at the very least.
Yep.
Okay, so TCU and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I got to go with Oklahoma on this one. TCU has just not been able to reproduce what they had last season in any measure unless they're playing BYU. So this is at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is trying to finish strong, trying to squeak into that Big 12 title game. If everything rolls their way, they'll be sufficiently motivated. Oklahoma will come out with this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially with everything on the line, everything that's going on with the tiebreaker, they're going to come out and play big, and it helps that it's at home. So yeah, I don't think TCU is going to be able to work their magic in that game. But it is the Big 12. Anything can happen at any week.
Anything can happen in the Big 12. Yep.
All right.
Inc-
So Brett Yormark, prior to the season, made his plea to Texas Tech to beat the Longhorns in this
That's right.
final Big
Give
12.
them the business.
So obviously, Texas is going to come out a little fired up based on that. Do you think Texas Tech can pull one out for their commissioner?
No. No, unfortunately. Had Texas had anything sort of like the season we thought they would have, then I'd say yes. I think they'd have a shot. And I think they'll push Texas. I don't think Texas will win in a blowout necessarily, but they'll win comfortably. They'll win by 10, 14 points in this one because going at Texas last game of the season, everything's on the line for Texas now, including an outside shot at the playoffs. Texas is going to pull away and win this one comfortably.
Yeah, I agree. And Brett Yormark saying those things only gave him added fire. I don't
Yep.
see Tech having any chance, unfortunately. Well, I'd say they have a chance, but it's not good. Um, all right. So here's one of the I don't know. Is this going to be a potential rivalry game? Everyone talks about the space race or whatever between these two, but they don't really seem like there's much of a rivalry, even though they've played each other in the AAC.
Yeah, familiar opponents. I could see it growing into a rivalry. I think they both got to have some better seasons than this if you're going to call it a rivalry. I know that not rivalries aren't reserved for just the dominant programs and the winning teams, and Houston and UCF have had some really good seasons in the past. Um, but I could see this budding into a rivalry. We'll see where it goes. As far as this season, it seems like UCF's got a little bit more on the line for this game, and have just hit their stride under Plumlee. Um, and boy, Houston looked like they were going to pull an upset against Oklahoma State for a quarter and a half. Couldn't sustain it. I think Houston struggled on the road, and that's why I'm going to go with UCF in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they've really kind of started pulling it together, and yeah, they had that tough loss last week, and Houston's been able to pop off and surprise teams and at least make things competitive. But I think UCF's got this one. All right, West Virginia at Baylor.
Yeah, West Virginia is going to finish the season strong. Baylor is going to lick their wounds and regroup for next year. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if they shake up the offensive staff or what happens with Baylor. They've got to make some changes. I don't think Dave Aranda's out. He's been too good in the short time he's been there. He's going to come in as one of those coaches on the hot seat next year. But West Virginia's coach handled that hot seat quite well this year and came with a pretty strong crew. So I think they'll finish strong. West Virginia's going to get this one, even though it's at Baylor. Baylor won't have much of a crowd present to influence the game, and they'll go down in this one.
Yeah, unfortunately, Baylor just has not been able to put it together this year, and West Virginia has looked very solid throughout most of the season. So, although they lost to Oklahoma by a lot more, they got blown out by Oklahoma, and BYU played them close.
They
So,
did. They did.
yeah,
You'd think BYU could beat West Virginia.
you would think so. And speaking of rivalries, though, I hope the Big 12 fixes this going forward and reserves rivalry week for actual rivals. I mean, you got West Virginia, Baylor. I don't know,
I agree. They've got a lot of work to do. Now you got 16 teams going in next year. You got some work to do. You gotta make that look good.
I expect to see the holy war on this final week. And
I
I mean,
think
there's some
so.
the Texas OU are leaving, but like the Red River rivalry is always done at the Texas State Fair. Is that what it is?
Hmm.
And so, that makes sense. Some are reserved for, certain weeks. And I like that Farmageddon is on this last week, which we're getting to. So after this one, but yeah, they
Yeah,
definitely need to keep these, rivalry week interesting with rivalries, but expect to see the holy war on this final week. So,
yeah.
okay. KU at Cincy.
This is interesting only because KU can't keep a quarterback healthy. And Ballard, for all the gallant effort he's put in there, is not to the same standard as KU's other quarterbacks. That being said, KU's defense is too good. Cincy's offensive struggles have been well documented. I expect Cincy to score very few points in this game, and Kansas to come away with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Cincy, it's just been, it was a rough year to go through the kind of transition they did with losing so much NFL talent and their head coach. So it's kind of a perfect storm against Cincy. So the good news is it's only up from here, I think,
That's right. That's right.
unless they're going to be the new bottom feeder of the conference.
It'll be interesting to see because there's so much parity in the Big 12. Somebody's going to end up in that spot year over year. It had been Iowa State historically in the Big 12, but Matt Campbell's got a strong crew. He's clearly sticking around and invested in that school. They're going to be good year over year. It'll be interesting to see who struggles year over year now that you got Kansas and Iowa State playing strong.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. So speaking of Farmageddon, here we are. This is one true big rivalry game that we had left for this final week in the Big 12. And what do you make of it? Is it going to live up to the billing?
Well, I am shocked that Iowa State is so or that Kansas State is so favored against Iowa State. That's a disrespect to Iowa State. That's a good defense. Their offense has found their way, and I'm going with the surprise upset Iowa State over Kansas State because of their defense. Kansas State has looked strong. They found their groove. That's a really good team. Also, really good defense. It's at Kansas State, but rivalry games are crazy, and I feel like Iowa State's been a little disrespected by the projections coming in here, and they're gonna lean into that and they're gonna come over with a victory.
Yeah, I agree. 15 and a half is not enough, but I still think Kansas State gets it done. They have a lot on the line here, and I think they're going to come through. I think they're a better team and probably even a better coach team. And I think in these types of games, although rivalry games, anything can happen, I think that's going to be enough to get them through. However, if Kansas State does lose, even if the other teams win out, that is going to take a lot of pressure off of the Big 12 with the whole whether they change the tiebreaker rules or not, fiasco that's going on. So if Kansas State just loses, then it's a moot point because Oklahoma State will have the head-to-head over OU. So,
Yep.
but BYU is going to do their part to make sure that Oklahoma State loses. So,
That's right.
to do our part in that. So, all right. So now we're moving to the rapid fire. We're just going to go through this fast. I've got many tabs open. So I don't even remember all the games, and I'm going to do my best to jot these down and get through this. So
Okay.
I don't even know who's next. So actually, it says there. So this is the Egg Bowl.
I love the Egg Bowl. I enjoy this Thanksgiving every year. Ole Miss is going to pull this one out. Mississippi State has just struggled too much this year. I really wish the Pirate was still there. I love the Mike Leach offense, but Mississippi State is struggled this year. It's going to be Ole Miss in this one.
Yeah, that rivalry. I'm glad he got the win in his final Egg Bowl and his final game because I believe he passed away before the bowl game last year. But man, with the rivalry between those two teams and with two head coaches with the kinds of personalities they had, this was
it was so good.
Yeah,
that was must-see TV.
It was a lot of fun with from players doing like the dog on the fire hydrant, pose in the end zone.
Yeah.
It's just the wild stuff. But yeah, I think Ole Miss. I don't think Mississippi State has much going for it this year. All right. So I don't know if this one has a game, and I don't know if this is even a true rivalry, but the SEC slated them in as this is their rivalry game. So Missouri at Arkansas.
Yeah, this one's Mizzou all the way. They're so good this year. Fun to watch. I hope this builds for a future for Mizzou. This is not a one-year TCU type of thing. I hope they built a strong program moving forward because it's fun. It's fun to see Mizzou go through and wreck the SEC like they have. They'll win this one handily.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and I could see Arkansas making this a single possession game, as they did against Alabama and so many other good teams. But ultimately, Mizzou's gonna pull this one off. And let us know in the comments if you do know any of these rivalry game names that we have missed. Now, this one is technically a rivalry. Obviously, Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. Michigan State hates Michigan way more than Penn State. I don't think they really think of Penn State outside of this week each year. But it's again the conference slated them together, as they're two of the later additions to the conference. Penn State much later, but I mean, this isn't even a protected rivalry in the Big Ten going forward. So again, I don't even know if it has a name. But what do you think will happen here?
Well, I mean, this is too lopsided. I mean, Penn
Yeah.
State has played so strong, and Michigan State, for all their documented struggles, they need to find some stability here in the offseason, get a really strong hire at head coach. But Penn State's going to win this one handily.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. All right. The Civil War, can we still call it that?
Yes, I hope they keep the Civil War despite conference realignment. This is one of those that's just like BYU Utah went through for years. They've got to keep this one. I look forward to it every year. The uniform match off, it's just a fun game. This year, Oregon State has a really good team, but they're going into Oregon and playing at Eugene. I don't see them pulling it out. Of any year, Oregon State could pull the upset this year, but Oregon has too much on the line and just a head full of steam since that Washington loss. I think they're going to beat Oregon State, and then they're going to go to the Pac-12 game championship, and they're going to beat Washington. But definitely winning this one.
Yeah, so I think last year, I'm so mad because I checked the score in this game. I was going to turn it on late, and it was a blowout. And, I kind of, with Saturdays, I kind of have to pick my battles, which games I'm going to watch. So I moved on, and then I came back and checked the score later. Sure enough, Oregon State had pulled off a miraculous upset and comeback upset, and that's fantastic. I think Oregon's going to remember that coming into this game. And even though the Beavers have a very good team this year, arguably better than last year, I think Oregon does as well, and they're not going to allow the win. And I'm with you. I think that the way they're playing in another matchup against Washington, I'd definitely take Oregon. No spoiler for future picks, but I'm with you on that all the way. All right, here. Oh, we got the game. I'll let you guess on this one.
Oh man, this is good. This is going to be a good game, and I hate that Harbaugh's not on the sideline. I really do. I'm going to go with Michigan more for my heart than anything else. I don't want Ohio State to win this. I love that Michigan has won 2 years in a row, but they've got the sign stealing scandal. A lot of the video that came out about that sign stealing was of the game against Ohio State, and how that played into it. So Michigan's kind of going to come in with a chip on their shoulder for sure. And they're playing at home, so I lean towards Michigan. I want them to pull this out, but Ohio State has been literally unbeatable. Obviously, Michigan has too, but Ohio State has looked just overcome obstacle after obstacle. It's hard to pick against them, but especially without Harbaugh on the sideline for the Wolverines. But I really want to see Michigan pull this out, and I think they can do it at home.
Yeah, I expect the Big House to be loud and really come out for the team, especially as you mentioned the scandal. But what gets me about this? So obviously, sign stealing. I think anything happens during a game, no big deal. Going to other people's games while it's in public, it does, and it's against the rules. Whether you think it should be or not, it is against the rules. And I don't really buy, the head coach not knowing what's going on in his program. Although, if they don't have the evidence to show, I don't know. I think, it's fine to dole out punishments. However, it's crazy to me that the Big Ten as a conference is coming through a bit slow here on the camera. Can you hear me at least?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, that's fine if my video's slow. So, but on the other side of it is that Big Ten teams were conspiring together to share Michigan signs. And so if you ask me, which one is worse? Is it, hey, we sent out some scouting people to go watch for signs out in the open? We're not talking practices, which, yes, is against the rules, but you know what else is against the rules? Sharing that information with other teams and then coercion between three teams. I just think if you're putting those up against each other, that's way worse. So I don't know. It's a very bizarre situation, and we'll see what comes of it.
The only thing I would say, put the speakers in the helmet. My goodness, it is 2023. This is ridiculous that we sit here and have a sign stealing scandal when you should be holding up to your mouth, calling in the play to your quarterback. Every school can now afford that. Every single school. It is not a question of favoring more wealthy schools over others. It's not. Just put the speakers in the helmet and move on. The fact that we have to even talk about this is like, it feels like it's 1985. Just move on.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Anyway, yeah, I definitely think Michigan pulls us out. I sure hope they do for the third year in a row. And really, because even if the wins get vacated or whatever, who knows? You still can't erase history. Reggie Bush still
That's right.
has a Heisman as far as anyone else is concerned. So,
Yes.
all right, here. Sorry, slow loading. Got so many tabs here. And like I said, I don't remember which games I opened. So,
That's right. The weekend's chock full of them.
oh, here. I can. Oops, wait. Okay, I think we got Kentucky versus Louisville next.
So Kentucky versus Louisville.
And does this have a
game.
name?
I think it does. I wish I knew it, but this one's big enough. I mean, basketball and football. This is going to capture the whole state. And you asked me preseason, I'd say Kentucky's going to run all over, but Louisville looks good. They look strong. I'd love to see them challenge Florida State for the ACC title. I love that they have this non-conference rivalry matchup on Thanksgiving weekend, how rivalry should be. So big applause for both of these schools for making that happen, and I'm picking Louisville in this one.
Yeah, I do kind of give the SEC slack for some of their scheduling priorities and only having 8 games when their conference continues to grow. But by only having 8 games, it allows so many of the ACC, SEC crossover rivalries in this final week, which if the Pac-12 would have done it that way, we could have still potentially had the Holy War every year throughout independence. Yeah. And, which is, like you said, it's protecting those rivalries, which really is what makes college football. So, I love it. But I think Louisville, Kentucky looked great last year, and they certainly aren't a bad team. But, yeah, I think Louisville looks really good. All right, hopefully this goes better here. All right. Does this count as a big-time rivalry? I'm counting it. The SEC says it is, so.
Not yet. It doesn't come close to LSU Alabama or LSU Florida, but LSU A&M, if A&M can pick it up and do a little bit better, then this can be a rivalry. LSU is going to
Texas and A&M playing in this week going forward.
It should be, in my opinion. It should be. So I don't like the contrived rivalries. You need history to make a rivalry, and at least A&M and Texas have a good history. I see LSU pulling this one out just because A&M's demoralized, losing their head coach. They've been mediocre for a couple of years, despite these amazing recruitment classes they brought in. And LSU, while not reaching the pinnacle of heights that they wanted to, they're certainly good enough to beat A&M at home on the last game of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. If that would have been if A&M would have had things together and been the team that they were expecting to be, I think this could have been a really good matchup because LSU certainly flawed, but as flawed as they are, I think they definitely have their strengths and definitely good enough to win this one. All right, here's one of the big rivalries of the Big Ten, Indiana and Purdue. I love these in-state rivalries.
Yeah, they're good. And this one's going to be a close game.
I was being a little facetious about this being a big rivalry, but in Indiana, I think it matters to a lot of people.
I agree with your in-state comment. The in-state rivalries are very fun, but I picked up on your dripping sarcasm for the Big Ten. But I do think it'll be an exciting matchup. Again, just an in-state rivalry on Thanksgiving weekend is how it should be in college football. It's too much fun for those communities. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm picking Indiana in the upset. They've been good enough this season to beat Purdue in a rivalry game where crazy things happen. I'm going with Indiana.
I really have no idea, so I'm going to go with Purdue on this. I don't know, and we've agreed too much for me to cover any ground this week, but they're both not great. But rivalry games are fun.
Oh, I don't know are we calling this a rivalry? Are we trying to call this a rivalry? Yeah, speaking of contrived rivalries.
The Rockies, okay.
Oh, and they even put a cute name on it too. That's fun. That's fun. Well, hopefully the Big 12 will continue uh, this effort, and they can at least play each other on occasion. Um, Boy, how the tables have turned on these two teams. I was completely so beginning of the season. I thought Colorado was going to wipe the floor with Utah and just run over them. But I'll tell you, I still harken back to that video that Oregon put out after they beat Colorado and just playing all the smack talk pregame, and it just oh, I don't know, something from that video made me say, wow, these Colorado is a lot of flash, not a lot of substance, and boy has this season proved that out. So Utah's going to win this one. It's really an unfortunate season for Colorado. Neon Dion's got a lot of work in the offseason. I think he could do it. He's an inspiring head coach, great recruiter. He'll get the right guys around him. Colorado will make it. They'll be a force in the Big 12 next year, but they won't win this one against Utah.
No, and yeah, like you said, at the beginning of the year when it looked like they were moving pretty well, I thought, okay, this will be a flashy offense against a really good defense with a team that has no offense, but that's not the case anymore. Even with the couple losses that Utah's had, this is against superior teams the last couple of weeks. So unfortunately, I've got to go with Utah on this one. I hate to agree with you on that.
Oh, the Iron Bowl.
Is this a rivalry? I've never heard of it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You haven't?
No,
The
never.
Kick Six is still one of my favorite Thanksgiving
Oh
memories.
my goodness,
Man,
I
that
remember
was
watching that.
yeah, yeah. That was oddly enough, it was a weird Thanksgiving weekend. That was the only football game I watched that weekend. That's all I needed was the Kick Six. That was awesome. But this year, I picked against Alabama too many times. It's at Auburn. I would love to see Auburn come back with the upset, but they lost to New Mexico State, not New Mexico, New Mexico State, at home. Paid them $1 million to come in and beat them. So Auburn's still licking their wounds from that. Alabama's coming in with a head of steam, and no one's been able to stop Alabama since the Texas game. Alabama wins this one running away.
Anything can happen in rivalry games like this. Anything can happen. And my theory is Auburn lost that game intentionally to get Alabama's focus off of them, get them to let up their guard. Then they're going to come out and just, play lights
I
out.
like it. I like
No,
it.
I think, like I said, while anything can happen, I don't think anything unusual is going to happen here. I think Alabama, unfortunately, on a year where it looked like they were down, has really put things together and is a very, very tough out here. So, all right. I feel like this one has a name. I know it's a great rivalry, and I'm excited to have it into the Big 12. It's one of the 4 protected rivalries that they'll have every year going forward, which is great and says something about this game. I really should know that. But what do you think is gonna happen here?
Arizona's been too good. I think in the future this could be a great rivalry. I do think Arizona State will find their footing after this year. Arizona is just a year ahead or 2 years ahead. They're really ahead of schedule on their rebuild and looking great this year. So Arizona will win this one comfortably. But I'm excited for this rivalry in the future too. Arizona State's they'll come back. This will be a good game in the future.
Yeah. It's again rivalry games. You never know, but the way the Wildcats have been playing, and I just looked it up. It is the duel in the desert.
The
Which,
Duel in the Desert.
yeah,
Nice.
so
Smacks of the Rumble in the Rockies, but with a little bit more history.
a lot more history. So, I don't know if this one's going to be that entertaining. Again, anything can happen in these rivalry games, and Arizona State has shown flashes. Remember they had that game where they played Washington very close.
They
But
did.
I think Arizona's really figured something out. I would not want to be playing them right now. I'm so glad that BYU's played Arizona when they did over the last few years.
Yes.
Because it's a much different task right now. Here's another we talk about great in-state rivalries, maybe not as flashy with the Commodores, who've typically not been very good. And,
Yeah,
they're supposed to be kind of coming back, but Tennessee's also not lived up to the billing.
yeah. They haven't. And this is an in-state rivalry. I don't know if I could put rivalry on this. I mean, I just don't. I mean, when was the last time Vandy had a good run? I mean, they'll snag a game here or there, but boy, it's just Tennessee's a behemoth, and Vandy does not do football. So Tennessee will win this one pretty comfortably, despite the fact they've had a bad season. And the SEC, I'll tell you, outside of the Iron Bowl, I feel like they're struggling on rivalry week. They got to figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if this one will be too. I tried to sell it, but I don't think there's going to be much there. It's probably not one I will be going out of the way to watch. Big Ten, again, they save all their big rivalries and in-state rivalries for the end of the season. I know this one isn't really flashy, but again, it's in-state, and this one has history. So again, you got to appreciate that. And with both these teams being, kind of having similar records here throughout the season, it could make for a good one. And Northwestern definitely playing better than I think anybody thought they would after all the scandals and firing of the coach at the prior to the season.
Yeah, certainly they've outperformed expectations. And again, rivalry games, anything goes. I'm going to go with Illinois in this one because of coaching. I think Northwestern has rallied around their situation, but I think Illinois pulls this one out.
All right, I couldn't disagree with you more. Northwestern all the way, 100%. I don't even doubt it. Mostly because I don't have a strong opinion on that one. So, Wisconsin at Minnesota. You feel like this is one that this is Paul Bunyan. Is that?
I think so.
Yeah,
the axe in this one.
Yeah, it's so cool trophy, cool rivalry, not in-state, but cross-border, and this is one that I really expected a little bit more from both these teams, but it is what it is. So, what do you see happening here?
Yeah, Wisconsin has impressed me. I've watched a few of their games, and I expected them to not be as good as they are this year, and they seem to dig deep in a couple games and pull out some close games. I like Wisconsin in this one. And I could go either way, but I feel like Wisconsin's had a good year one with their new head coach, and they'll finish off with a victory.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't watched much of Minnesota, caught very little of Wisconsin as well, but I think with Luke Fickell there, you're right. I think I believe in them a little bit more than PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers, but who knows? Who knows? It is in Minnesota, so could be a good one. Oh, talk about deep, long-standing rivalries and hatred between two programs. Nothing's like this one. Please, seriously, let us know in the comments if this one has a name. I'm very curious to know if they've contrived that for them.
Something with the color red, right? I mean, they both. I mean, Maryland wears like all kinds of colors now, but they used to be red back in the day when they were just the Terps before they wore the flag on their helmet. But I'll go with Rutgers in this one because they're at home. This is just it's almost a toss up, but I think Rutgers can pull it out against the Terps at home.
Yeah, I'm actually going with the Terps in this one. I don't know. We got I think they've been a little bit, I don't know. I don't know that much, honestly, about either program. Both of them, if I see them on, I usually generally quickly change the channel. But, I can't believe what's his bucket's still there, but after all these years. But I think they've been good enough, and I don't think Rutgers has much of a home field advantage. So I think Maryland can go there and steal the win. In fact, I'm surprised that Rutgers is bowl eligible. So, okay. Here we got one from an in-state rivalry for us.
Yeah. Boy, when Bronco was there, I didn't miss this game. This was fun to watch. Had in-state ramifications and was cheering for Bronco. It's odd now that he's left. I'm kind of indifferent to who wins this game. And I'm going to go with Virginia in the upset pick here because they have come on so strong the latter half of the season. They've just kind of found their footing. I didn't expect that. I thought they would struggle all year long. They might win a game against William & Mary and just get blown out, but they've kind of found their footing. And I'm going to pick Virginia at home in a surprise upset win against the Hokies.
All right. Well, that's it. That decides it. I'm going with Tech then. Uh, I they also took a little bit to get going this season, and while UVA's come on really strong here at the end. I mean, even though they've had some losses, they were playing Louisville tight, Miami to overtime, UNC. They looked like they really had a shot there. So even Duke. So I'm with you. I think UVA's got a really good shot here. I don't think how they're playing now is necessarily reflected by their record, and it is a home game. But talk about not having a home field advantage. I I think I still just have a little bit more confidence in Tech, but really I would not be surprised if UVA pulled it off, and it'd be good for them, who's not really had a lot of success against the Hokies over the years. So.
Yeah.
All right. So the Apple Cup, which we learned is going to continue going forward.
Well, so they say. So they say, right? Money's where your mouth is. So they've committed to it. I hope it happens.
Well, and I think it may be. I think the legislature is doing a lot behind the scenes to try to smooth things over. And
Yeah. Yeah. This has got to continue. It's so good. This is great Thanksgiving weekend watch. I hope it doesn't just occur, but it occurs when it should occur in the season, and they can continue to play this Thanksgiving weekend. Washington will win this one. Too good, too much on the line. They'll get to the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon, but Washington State early in the season I thought might have a shot in this game, but they've struggled a little bit on the latter half of the year, much more so than Oregon State, who's really come on strong. I think Washington wins this one comfortably.
I'm with you on that. Unfortunately, I thought it looked like it could have been a better game at the end of the season. Would love to see Wazoo pull it off in their, with the way that everything's gone down with the Pac, but I don't think it will. So, all right, here's another great rivalry when we talk about maintaining those in-state rivalries, even though you're in different conferences. This is fantastic. Florida State just lost their quarterback to the season, and Gators have been competent enough. So what do you think is going to happen here? It's anyone's guess.
This is going to be a great game. It's going to go down to the wire. And I'll tell you, I think there's too much motivation from Florida State. I think if Florida State was still ranked number 4 in the playoffs, they'd drop this game. But they lost the spot. I know everybody says it's because Washington played the bigger game last week or whatever their reasoning was, but Florida State is going to come in with a head full of steam because they got disrespected because their quarterback got injured and they dropped a rank and they're out of the playoffs. At the end of the day, I don't think it'll make a difference. I don't know that Florida State has enough to win the ACC championship game. I do think they'll win the close one against Florida, though.
Yeah. I really don't know. I'm guessing so. I think, had their quarterback been healthy, I think Florida State takes this all the way. I still think it probably leans in Florida State's favor, especially having a full week of practice with their QB, their backup in. But I'm going to go ahead and say the Gators maybe pull one out and have a little bit of dignity here at the end of their season and get bowl eligible. But I hope not. And, I always think it's funny that BYU ended up with the greater of the ETNs here, with Caleb. But that's not sincere. All right. I love these ACC rivalry games.
Yeah. ACC really lucked out here. This one is really unfortunate that Stanford's been as bad as long as they have. Notre Dame wins this one comfortably. I'd much rather see Notre Dame USC this weekend, or something a little bit more snazzy than these two schools. But hey, that's on the ACC now.
Yeah, we'll see how many of those games that because so many of Notre Dame's rivals are now, other than Stanford, really well, Miami. So they've got a few in the ACC, but the rest of them are all basically in the Big Ten. So we'll see how easy it is for them to continue to schedule those all going forward. But yeah, Notre Dame's going to take that one, although Stanford did beat Colorado. So, all right. Another SEC ACC crossover, in-state rivalry. Georgia Tech has been surprising this year. Can they surprise us once more?
Oh, I'd love it if they could, but they won't. Georgia's too good, and Georgia's walking right into the playoff. I hope somebody can beat them there, but won't be this game.
No. Yeah, I'm with you. Unfortunately, it would be fantastic. That would be really cool if they did. But uh, although it probably only help Ohio State get into the playoff if Michigan wins. So I guess I wouldn't want that. I'd rather have Georgia again. But all right. Once again, SEC, ACC. Only it feels like Clemson should be the SEC and South Carolina
Doesn't
should be
it?
the ACC team. But I think actually growing up for a long time, I thought it was that way. So, Clemson's been down. Can South Carolina do it?
No, South Carolina's down, unfortunately. Clemson is growing in momentum. They're getting better and better. They'll go into this week and they will beat South Carolina. And South Carolina's lost their way a little bit. They should have been a top 20 team this year, and the wheels kind of came off, and it's really unfortunate. I think it's a fun program when they play well. It's good to see them do well in the SEC, but they'll lose this game against Clemson.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. I'd love to see him come and show out, but I think Clemson, as down as they are, I think South Carolina has it. All right. I don't know. I still feel like this should be UNC Duke, at least in basketball. Maybe in football, this is the bigger rivalry, but a good rivalry
Yeah.
nonetheless.
No, I'd love UNC Duke this weekend. I agree. I agree with you on that one. That's what it should be. But I agree. It's a good rivalry. And I'm going with UNC in this one. I think they have the better squad. I think North Carolina State struggled offensively too much to pull this one out. Drake May is gonna put together a good game and then declare pro after this. So I think I'll go with the Tar Heels.
Yeah, I'd love to go with Robert and I and the Wolf Pack with Armstrong there at quarterback, but yeah, I think UNC's the better squad. So, um, all right, and final pick here. Oh, I I think this counts enough as a rivalry. I was trying to find some of these in the G5 conferences, and there's just been so much turnover and just not a lot of consistency. But I felt like this was the one out of all of them that really felt like it had some history. They're pretty closely tied, and usually two of the better teams in the Mountain West. Not as much so this year. Two teams that are definitely vying for getting into a Power Five conference. So I felt like out of all the G5, wanted to have some representation. This was the best one this weekend.
Yeah, and San Diego State really needed a better year than this with the way they were campaigning to get into the Pac-12 and save the Pac-12 and or the ACC. I mean, they've been all over everybody's map as maybe the school to bring on and maybe the next one up from G5. They needed a better season than this. But I don't think it'll end well for them. I think Fresno State's going to pull this one out at San Diego State. San Diego State's going to go home licking their wounds and try and figure out next steps for their football program.
Yeah, I'm with you. And what's even more so is that what Brady Hoke has already said that he will be stepping away after this season. So it'll be interesting to see if the team can rally around him. But yeah, I think they just are not very good this year. Bummer of a year for them, as you mentioned, really trying to get into a Power Five. Although I don't know if those opportunities are there anymore. I think that the way the Pack handled that. Oops, sorry about that. Let's remove both of these. So anyway, we got a number of picks in there. Not as rapid fire, but we got through them all, and should be a good weekend with all these rivalry games. I hope to see a lot of upsets, a lot of fun, close games, nonetheless heated, and I'm sure everybody will be very civil and kind and cordial towards one another
That's right.
throughout all
Best
of
part
this.
of rivalry week.
Yeah. All right, Adam. Well, we'll see how this goes. We'll see if I can finally catch you and or at least make it interesting here at the end of the season as we form our own rivalry during this rivalry week. Um, and hopefully BYU can pull out one of those surprise games here. But
Right.
all right. Well, thank you again. Please, again, if you haven't already liked the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. And as always, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.